Hello. I'm just getting set up on YouTube here. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Live Spirit Chat. This happens almost every Sunday at 3 p.m. United States Central Standard Time. This is a chance to participate in a group teaching session and get your questions answered about all kinds of things related to developing your spiritual connection, developing your spiritual practice, and all kinds of things related. Including practicing magic, folk magic, candle magic, the tarot, divination, speaking with spirits, spirit guides, mediumship, working with your ancestors, dream magic, and so on and so forth. So for each live session, I record these on YouTube as well as Instagram. Actually, I go live on Instagram and then it's recorded on YouTube. And when you follow me on Instagram, you're able to submit early bird questions, which means that you can submit your questions early. You can submit them anonymously, and they will be addressed at the top of the hour before I take the live questions. So it's a good way to ensure that your questions get in, and it's also a nice way to submit questions anonymously if you don't want people to know what you're asking about, or if you would like some extra privacy. So I'm going to make a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to go ahead and start addressing the early bird questions before I take our live questions. And we should have quite a bit of time today to take live questions. So hang tight. You can always start submitting your live questions right away if you want to. Throw them out there and then I'll get to them when it's the right time. Or you can kind of sit on them until it is the right time. So announcements. I do have some special stuff coming up. I'm going to be offering through my Mystic membership, which is membership via Patreon. It's community membership via Patreon. Through that Mystic membership, I'm going to be offering some special fun things for New Year. So in January, to everyone who participates in that Mystic membership, you can sign up at any level. Everyone who participates is going to be offered a live private session to discuss your New Year readings. So what I'm going to do is do mini New Year forecasts for you, for everybody who signs up for Patreon and is participating in January. So that's going to be really cool. Individualized, free New Year forecasts for everyone who participates at every level. Membership starts at just $5 a month. So, I mean, that's nothing to get your New Year forecast, to get private, live, free readings with me. It's going to be really cool. So that's one thing. And then also, through Mystic membership as well as in person here in Austin, I'm going to be teaching workshops for manifesting your New Year intentions. And the full details aren't yet formulated for the workshop that's going to be happening in Austin. So you can go ahead and keep an eye out for that. Those announcements will be coming really soon. I can tell you it's going to be cool. It's going to be a 3-hour workshop. And I'm really going to go deep with folks and work on what is the best way for you as an individual to manifest, what techniques work best for you, what method of spiritual connection works best for you. And we're actually going to do the hands-on magic together in the workshop and manifest those New Year intentions. So that's I'm really excited about that. That's going to be fun, cool. It's going to be effective and it's going to be powerful. And then I'm going to offer something really similar remotely or via the web for my Mystic members as well. So that will be at the Empress level and above for Patreon Mystic membership for the month of January. We're going to be focusing on manifesting New Year intentions. So you will want to sign up for Mystic membership before January 1st if you would like to participate in those things. I don't usually pull cards for these live sessions. Thanks for your suggestion. I don't usually offer readings for these live sessions. Sometimes I do when I feel like it, but today I'm not offering readings, and I don't typically do that. This is a Q&A session, so sometimes when I feel like I want to give something back in addition to what I'm already giving to the community, I decide to do some readings, but I wouldn't expect that to happen on a regular basis. So I'm going to go ahead and address those early bird questions, and then we'll dig into your live questions. Thanks everyone for being here. I see lots of lovely, bright and shiny faces here on Instagram. Hi, JC Emoji. Nice to see you. Hi, Tommy. Jay Del Rey. Nice to see you. Tiniest of Sweaters. The Alchemist Warrior, cool name. Welcome aboard. Alegua 60131, nice to see you. Kuan Yin 11. All right, lots of awesome people. Hi, One Boss Witch, thanks for joining. Hello, everyone, thanks for being here. The first question I have is, I'm new to Spirit Chat. Do we give a question for you to ask the spirits? So I hope that my introductory to the live session answered that question. I do offer spirit-led readings. I do offer channeled readings, as well as spirit guide readings, as well as mediumship through my professional services, but I'm not typically offering readings in our live spirit chats. The answers are usually coming from me unless I get a download or I get some kind of spiritual connection, some kind of spontaneous channeling happening while I'm answering the questions, which does happen, but typically no readings here. Okay, the next question is, how can I get out of a spiritual block similar to a writer's block? So I'm going to suggest a couple of different ways that this could be addressed. If you want to address this magically with candle magic, then I would suggest a blockbuster or a road opener. Looks like I'm frozen up on Instagram, so I want to see if that gets straightened out. Okay, good. We're back on IG. I hope everyone can see me and hear me. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. What I was saying is to address a spiritual roadblock, which is similar to a writer's block. You could address it from a magical perspective using candle magic. And if you'd like to do that, then I would recommend a blockbuster candle or a road opener candle. And I would recommend just a standard blockbuster or road opener vigil candle. This is a great time of year to do that as well, right? Leading into the new year is a traditional time to open our roads and work on those kinds of energetic connections so that we have a nice and clear path to welcome in our blessings, welcome in our good luck and on our opportunities and our success as we move into the new year. So definitely recommend that. And then if you would like ways to address this from more of a practical perspective in terms of your spiritual practice itself, I would recommend trying new things. So for instance, if you're feeling a kind of spiritual blockage which seems to be preventing you from kind of like sitting down at your altar and performing your daily meditations or performing your daily prayers, just as an example, whatever it may be, whatever it seems to be kind of blocking you from, you would want to instead take a completely new approach, like try a walking meditation, try going outside in nature to pray, just try breaking up your routine and doing something completely different. And then another aspect of this too is sometimes we really need to take a break. Sometimes it's fine to take a break. You know, spiritual practice is just like everything else. We sometimes need a break in order to get refreshed, in order to become revived. It's totally fine and totally normal to take a break from our spiritual practice. So it may just be time for you to do that. Yeah, there's lots of different ways to come into a new sort of routine or a new way of being in your spiritual practice, especially when you're feeling blocked. You may also want to do a cleansing. It may be a good time to do a cleansing in order to revive and revitalize you, and in order to kind of revive and revitalize your spiritual connection. I think there was something else I wanted to say about that has slipped my mind. So if it comes back to me, I'll circle back around to that question. And then the next question I have, let me have some tea before I move on to that next question. Thanks for being here, everyone. Nice to see you all on IG. I hope you're all having a lovely Sunday leading up to the holidays. It seems like it's been an intense season so far, an intense holiday season, and that this year might be kind of intense, that intensity might tend to sort of continue to build leading up to Christmas or Yule, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm hoping all of you some good time to relax, refresh, take great care of yourself, rest, rejuvenate. And I just want to say that if you're having some challenging times, if you're having challenging times with your family, if you're having challenging times within yourself, if you're feeling like you're coming up against a lot of blocks or challenges or difficulties, you're not alone. I'm seeing this happening with a lot of people. So just know that you're not alone. And just know that the most important thing is to take care of yourself. Get rest if you need to, get extra rest if you need to, break your routine if you need to. And, you know, make sure that you honor your feelings. If you're feeling pissed off, you're feeling sad, you know, you're feeling discouraged, make sure you're able to give yourself some space to really be honest about the way that you're feeling, and really to honor those feelings in a way that lets you know that it's normal to feel the way that you do, that nothing is wrong with you. You're just human. You know, give yourself space to truly feel and to express it in a healthy way. You know, sometimes I think what happens is we tell ourselves that we're not normal because we're experiencing challenges. We tell ourselves that something is wrong with our lives because we're experiencing problems. And that's not true. That couldn't be further from the truth. We're humans. We're going to experience challenges. We're going to experience problems. It's the way that we grow. It's part of what we have been put here to do. So make sure you kind of give yourself space to allow to remember and recognize that what you're feeling and what you're going through is normal. And it doesn't mean that you're fucked up. It doesn't mean that something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean that your life is falling apart, or, you know, that your life is always going to suck. It just is what it is. It's totally normal. And you're allowed to feel how you feel, and you're allowed to express to others how you feel as well, in a healthy way with boundaries, right? And that kind of circles me back to something else. Instagram keeps freezing up today. Not cool. There we go. Sorry that IG seems to be having technical problems today, everybody. Please be patient and bear with me. But what I was just saying about honoring our feelings and knowing that our feelings are normal and taking time to express them and take care of ourselves, that kind of circles me back to that question about how to remove a spiritual block, which is similar to a writer's block. And the other thing I wanted to say about that is that sometimes our routines need to be changed, or sometimes like our routines aren't working for us. Our daily habits that we were adhering to previously, or that we think we should adhere to, or that we want to adhere to, really aren't jiving with our personal rhythms, right? Or with the rhythms of life. So sometimes the best way to get out of those kinds of blockages is to go with the flow. Like, if you can't seem to get up at a certain time in the morning to do your meditation, and really you're feeling more alive and more inspired at night, then instead of trying to force yourself to stick to this routine that really isn't working for you, it's best to just go with the flow and go ahead and do your practice, you know, at night instead. So pay attention to those kinds of rhythms as well and how it's working with you personally and how it's working in your life, it might be as something as simple as that, as just going with your own natural flow of your energy, of your inspiration and your spiritual connection. Pay attention to how you're feeling throughout the day and throughout your life. You know, maybe it's better to act on some spark of inspiration right when it hits, instead of setting aside some sort of assigned time for that spiritual practice, right? So that's another thing to take into consideration. So the next question is an interesting one. How can I know who is speaking through the pendulum if I have been dealing with a trickster spirit? So there's a few different things to say about this. First of all, you don't have to use your pendulum to speak with spirits. If you set that intention, if that's what you're doing intentionally, then that's fine, and that's one way. But just know that just because you're using tools to divine, or you're practicing divination in the first place, doesn't necessarily mean that you're speaking with spirits. You can also be speaking with your higher self. You can also be speaking with your own intuition, or using it as a way to access your deeper knowledge and your deeper intuition, or your spiritual or psychic gifts. So that's just something to take into consideration as some background information. And then if you have set the intention to use the pendulum or use your divining tools to specifically communicate with a spirit, then there's some safety nets that you're going to want to implement. And what a lot of people do is they'll give the clause at the beginning of their session, you know, I only want to speak with spirits of love and light, things of this nature. There's a lot of different ways you can approach that. I'm seeking connection with benevolent spirits. I'm seeking connection with spirits that have my highest good in mind. When I practice mediumship, for example, I always set the intention, and I say the intention out loud, that I'm looking to make relationships with spirits who want a mutually beneficial relationship for both of our spiritual evolution, for the spiritual evolution of both of us. And that the purpose of entering into that communication, the purpose of entering into that relationship is for the mutually beneficial spiritual evolution for both of us. So you want to have some kind of parameters in place for the types of spirits you want to connect with and why. Right? That's really important, because it's not just as simple as I'm going to communicate with the spirit in order to get an answer, or in order to get what I want or get what I need. You're actually entering into a kind of relationship with the spirit, even if you think that you're only going to be communicating with them once, because you're opening yourself up to them. They then know that you're available to them, and they then may have the tendency to come back or to hang around. So better to have the conscious idea in mind already that any kind of spirit communication is entering into a relationship, and therefore you want to have some control and some intention and some meaning behind what kind of relationship you're seeking, right? So then moving forward with your question, specifically, you want to know how you can tell who you've been talking with. So, and you're saying if you've been dealing with a trickster spirit, and yeah, trickster spirits will come up regardless if it is there. So there's a lot of different ways to define a trickster spirit, right? We can just be talking about a spirit of the dead who is tricky and who likes to play games, or maybe who likes to represent themselves as something or someone they're not. So that's one way that we could use the term trickster spirit. And then it's important to differentiate between that kind of trickster spirit or tricky spirit of the dead, and then an traditional sort of trickster spirit, which is like a trickster god, right? Or a trickster deity. So it's important to define those things. And then if the only way to really know who you're talking to is to continue to talk to them over time and to get evidence from them. In spiritualism, we call it evidence, gathering evidence. And What evidence will look like is that over time, their behavior and the types of messages that they give you will be consistent. And over time, they will give you information or guidance that either pans out. Maybe they'll give you pieces of information that you have to kind of see, okay, does this end up being true over time? Or they'll give you guidance that you have to wait and see, did that guidance pan out? So it's gonna be in the quality of connection and communication that you're getting from them, and how that affects and shows up in your life over time, right? So it's just like any other kind of relationship. It's like when you're getting to know a person, they're not necessarily going to show you their whole or true personality all at once, which is just human nature, but you're not going to know if they tell the truth or if they're showing who they really are until you've been around them a handful of times, or you've seen them in other kinds of situations. And it's the same when you start communicating with the spirit. You're not going to know if what they're telling you is true. You're not going to know who they really are until you've consistently communicated with them and things start to pan out and make sense over time. So even though it seemed like I gave a lot of information about that, that's really just the basic foundations for opening up communication with the spirit and building a relationship with the spirit. And if I think of anything else important related to that, I will circle back to it. But in the meantime, I've answered all of my early bird questions. So if anybody would like to start submitting live questions, it's a great time to do so. I'm happy to take your questions. I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. And I think that last week, I may have given the wrong impression about something, because last week I was talking about how this isn't a good place to learn the foundations of magic. And what I meant by that is that in a live chat, you're not going to learn everything that you need to know in order to practice magic, or in order to cast a spell, or in order to practice mediumship, or any of these big picture things. But it is a totally appropriate place to ask about specific questions regarding specific types of spell, or techniques and tools for spells, this sort of thing. So I was never intending to say that you can't ask me about practicing magic, or that this isn't a good place to talk about spell work or practicing magic. What I was saying is that you're not going to learn everything that there is to know, because there's always going to be more gaps to fill. There's always going to be more pieces to the puzzle, and it's always beneficial to do your own studying and to find out what works for you and what resonates with you. And part of that is going to be practice and really learning what techniques and what processes and, you know, what works with your spiritual gifts, what works with your spiritual connection, what works with you as a person, to start to piece together your own philosophies, your own belief system, to really think about and apply how it fits in with your spirituality or with your religion, whatever it may be. So there's a lot of personal elements to this that you're going to need to piece together over time. And there's also practices, there's also aspects of the Instagram is frozen up again. Man. Let's see. There's also aspects of the practices that you're not going to be able to put together until you actually put in the practice yourself. So there's that as well. It's just like cooking. It's not, you're not going to learn how to bake a cake just by asking somebody how to bake a cake, or just by reading recipes. Eventually, you're going to have to practice baking a cake and put those put that knowledge and those techniques into use in order to figure it out. So there's a lot of different things that need to be delved into, pieced together, and explored in order to learn how to cast spells and practice magic or do any of this stuff. So I just wanted to clarify that's what I meant when I brought those things up. Instagram is doing some really weird stuff. Like now it's just using a different filter that I didn't choose, and it won't let me choose the filter I want. It keeps cutting in and out. So bear with me on IG today, guys. Let's see, I do have some live questions submitted here. I double checked and I saw no posts for early bird questions. I think IG is limiting engagement. Yeah, that makes sense. They've been limiting my engagement on and off. It's pretty annoying. I did post the early bird submissions 2 different times though, because we'll only stay up for 24 hours. So there was a lapse in between the 2 different early bird submissions that I posted. Also, I take it down a certain amount of time before the live chat, because otherwise I won't have time to actually read the submissions before I go on live. So it could be one of those things as well. But my question is, what do you suggest I do regarding dream where I was instructed to make a Gris Gris bag? I recommend that you go ahead and make the Gris Gris bag. If you're receiving that kind of powerful dream guidance that you remember and that resonates with you, and you're getting such specific instructions, then I would go ahead and follow it. I think that you already know, because the impression that I get is that you already feel like you're really connected to that dream and to those instructions. So I highly recommend that you follow that dream. If you have any other specific questions related to that, maybe there's something I'm missing about your question, or maybe there's some other context. If there's another aspect of it you'd like me to delve in deeper, go ahead and let me know. Do you use astrology to decide when to cast spells? Any types of spells? I use astrology to determine when to cast spells sometimes. It depends on what is going on with my clients. It depends on what kind of needs they have and how pressing their needs are. And what's happened over time is that it's my impression that people would like their spells cast sooner rather than later. And therefore, I don't always wait for what the traditional astrological phase would be for that spell work. And I also use my intuition pretty heavily. And a lot of times, even though I'm not checking the astrological calendar and I'm not necessarily scheduling in regard to the moon phase, etc., using my intuition really seems to schedule the spells on the days that work the best. So that's what I've come to rely on over time, much more so than astrology. Even though in some situations I will use astrology. And it just depends, like I said, on my client's needs, on the circumstances, on timelines, on how fast people need things, etc. I don't adhere to, like, some people believe that you shouldn't cast during Mercury retrograde. I've always casted during Mercury retrograde. I've always had just as many good results during Mercury retrograde as I do at other times. So that's something that I don't adhere to. A lot of people won't practice love magic during Venus retrograde. Same thing there. I've always had just as many good results during Venus retrograde as any other time with love magic. So I also don't adhere to that. I think that a lot of people kind of misunderstand the deeper meaning behind Mercury retrograde or Venus retrograde. And I think that there's a lot of fear mongering over those kinds of astrological phases. And so I tend to work a little bit differently. I don't always work with the moon phases, but for my group services, I do work with the moon phases. And what I mostly tend to work with on a daily basis or on a regular basis is the day of the week, as well as my intuition and how I'm feeling energetically. Because I'll tell you, if it's the perfect moon phase and it's the perfect day of the week and it's the perfect planetary hour, but I'm not feeling my best energetically, then it doesn't matter. What's one of the things that's most important is that my energy needs to be strong. I need to be inspired. I need to have a strong spiritual connection. So performing during that time when I feel it's the best to perform and when it is the best to perform for me and for my spiritual connection, that makes a bigger difference than anything else could. So I hope that answers your question. Go ahead and feel free to submit follow-up questions if you have them. Oh, you don't remember all the instructions from your dream. Okay. So she says, the only ingredient I remember is bones. I never really been drawn to have one and don't know who to get it from. Oh, I thought that you would make it yourself. It seemed like you were getting the instructions in the dream to make it yourself. I suggest that you try doing that. If those instructions came through to you, then I would suggest that you try making the bag. And like I was saying before, the only way for you to really learn is through that hands-on practice. You can always get one from somebody else if you feel like you want to have all bases covered. And I do offer mojo bags, by the way. So you can always do that if you feel like you want to have all bases covered. But I feel like if you're getting those instructions really specifically through a dream, then they're telling you, your guides or your ancestors are telling you, it's time for you to start learning how to do this and to make this for yourself. So I don't know, think about that a little bit more. Maybe set the intention before you go to sleep. Plant a seed. It's called dream incubation, when you plant a seed in your subconscious mind or in your spiritual connection before you go to sleep. Plant that seed and see if you can get some further information or get a reminder for those instructions for your Gris Gris bag and see what happens, see what transpires. Wouldn't one have to know how to get a live spirit in it? So there are some different approaches and some different schools of thought that go along with that. For a lot of people, myself included, it's not, we don't consider that you're actually capturing a spirit that is already in existence and sending it into that bag and then keeping it confined in that bag. What we consider is that we are creating a spirit using the ingredients that we put into the bag. We're giving it life, we're giving it energy for those ingredients to work together and then create a spirit of those ingredients. We're creating a new spirit through those ingredients working together. It's like it's a microcosm of spiritual or magical energy, and then it becomes its own living spirit in and of itself. So I wouldn't, and I know a lot of people wouldn't consider that you are capturing a spirit from someone somewhere else and putting it in this bag and then making it do your bidding, right? What we're doing is creating a spirit out of the ingredients that we're using and then tending to that spirit. You were born during a Mercury retrograde, and it was awesome. That's really cool, Beth. That's an interesting detail. I was born on Friday the 13th, and I've always thought that was awesome. I've always loved Friday the 13th. We have one coming up next week in December, Friday the 13th. I look forward to that. If you have follow-up questions about that Gris Gris bag and about working with the spirit in the Gris Gris or how that's done, I'm happy to discuss that further. If my YouTube peeps have questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. Otherwise, we're probably frozen again. Okay. So, okay, I do have some more questions here. Instagram is acting really funny, y'all, so probably gonna end up logging off. Also, there doesn't seem to be a ton of activity today either. What are you doing for Our Lady of Guadalupe, December 12th? I'm doing a group spiritual service through my Mystic membership on Patreon. During the month of December, I always offer larger group spiritual services than usual. I honor Our Lady of Guadalupe, St. Lazarus, the Holy Child of Attica, as well as St. Lucy. So during December, I do a lot of intensive honoring. Those are like some of my favorite saints. These are saints that I have a really strong connection to. So the month of December is really special to me, and I do a lot of intensive work with those spirits or saints, whatever you want to call them, during this month. So I'll be honoring Our Lady of Guadalupe soon, as well as several others. And part of what I do there is I make it a part of my own holiday celebrations. I make it a part of my own household holiday cheer, right? And I invite them into my home, and it becomes a part of our holidays. They become a part of our family during this holiday season. So it's more than just the normal kind of service that I do. It's really personal to me, and it's really intertwined in my spiritual relationships and in my spiritual practice in general. So it's a really special time for me, and I'm very close to Our Lady of Guadalupe. I had a quick cue about ancestors and if they are attached to only the body that we are in now or to the soul. They're definitely not only attached to the body that we're in now. They're in my belief system and in a lot of belief systems throughout time, throughout culture, throughout different practices. They are souls that continue to be reincarnated. Most of them, they don't have to, right? So there are some exceptions to that, but they're not specifically attached to one body. We all have purpose beyond this lifetime and beyond just this one person that we are now, you know. So the short answer is they're attached to the soul, not to the body. And in fact, there's a lot of things to take into consideration surrounding that. For instance, some of the things that our ancestors do or did during their lifetime was part of the role that they were supposed to play out as spirits who are in a human body. In other words, their personality or their actions are not something that necessarily stays with them forever. They're on a journey of spiritual evolution, and therefore, by the time they reach a status where they are to be our guides or to take a role in our life, they're usually much changed. They're usually much more of a pure entity rather than a human entity. They've gone through a process of spiritual evolution, and they are going through a process of spiritual evolution. So I hope that kind of helps to give you some background information about, you know, the belief, the thought process and the belief that is behind this. And if you have follow-up questions, let me know. I'll plant the dream seed and see. Yes, I felt I should make it myself too. What kind of bones would one use in a Gris Gris bag? What are the options? The options are limitless. It depends on what kind of bones you can get your hands on ethically and legally. And it depends on what kinds of bones are going to fit in with the bigger purpose or goal for your Gris Gris bag. So, for instance, you can use the doctrine of signs for bones, the same way that you would plants. So an example of what that looks like is like teeth are for wisdom as well as for protection. They bite, so they can protect us. They can fend off what we want to fend off, right? For instance, if you were making a gambling hand, then maybe you would want to use a bone that's related to a hand, right? Like finger joints. Sometimes people do use human bones, so that's something to take into consideration. But you might want to use like an alligator claw or things of this nature, right? A chicken claw, a chicken foot, things that can grab, things that are going to reach out and grab your good luck and draw it and pull it into you, or things that are related to hands. So these are some small examples of how you can use the doctrine of signs to determine what bones may work for you in your bag. The earrings that I'm wearing are raccoon penises. So these are love charms. These are a very traditional love charm. And you may want to use a bone like this if you were making your bag for love-related purposes or goals, right? So there's a lot of different things to take into consideration there, as well as what kind of bones you have access to and how you're going to acquire those bones, because that part can get tricky. I think every dream I've had, I could levitate. What do you think that means? It might mean that you're looking for more freedom in your life. It might mean that you are just looking for ways to feel lighter, looking for ways to have more movement in your life. It could also just be the types of dreams where you're playing. So there's a lot of different, not a lot, but there's a few different types of dreams that we have. They're not all messages. They're not all guidance. We also have dreams where we're just kind of playing around and having fun. And sometimes those flying dreams or levitating dreams, or like I have dreams where I'm weightless and I can dance in the air and like do crazy gymnastics and stuff. And I feel like in those dreams, I'm really just playing and having fun and letting loose. So that's something to take into consideration as well. It could also be like flying dreams are really prominent, right? A lot of people have flying dreams or these kinds of like weightless dreams where we can do things that we can't do while we're on Earth. And it might be also that we're remembering things we could do as a spirit, or we can do as a spirit, but that we can't do when we're here bound to this material plane, you know? So it might be a way for us to give ourselves freedom and to remember that we are a soul and that we're not necessarily a body. It's another way to look at it. Do you have any suggestions on how to tune into the appropriate frequency? Did receive all downloads. I hear spirit speaking to me all the time, but I can't make out everything that they say. So I wouldn't necessarily look at that as a need to tune into the right frequency. What I would look at that as is a need to continue to develop your clairaudience. And it's not that hard to do. It just takes some consistency, some consistent practice, and you can definitely develop and strengthen your clairaudience with practice. I'm not going to be able to tell you all of the in-depth ways to practice that here, but what I would suggest is that you do some research about how to develop and use your clairaudience and start practicing some specific exercises for that. It's very much possible, feasible, and can be very powerful to practice and develop those kinds of gifts. I do have a video on YouTube as well as in IGTV that has book recommendations for developing your spiritual gifts and your psychic abilities. So look for that. There will be at least one book in that video that will have really great information with really specific exercises for developing clairaudience. I also offer one-on-one guidance and coaching for developing psychic gifts. So you might want to think about some ways you can approach that for yourself or with other people or with some assistance. Okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and log off for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your excellent questions. Thank you for your support and your interaction. I always look forward to our live spirit chats. I always very much enjoy and appreciate your questions. And I love these conversations that we have together. So be well, take care of yourself, and stay blessed. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Be well.